Hey, what's up? I'm Ga. We're in 7 Mortal Sins. There's been some kind of questions floating around about Asmodeus, so I felt motivated, I guess, to make a comprehensive Asmodeus guide. I'm going to be covering, all of them in general. If you want to pick them up, they're here until the 25th. This might be your last chance to get them for a while, because before this, she hasn't been really rerun in a long time. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm going to be covering all 3 Asmodeus, how to build them, how to play them, what characters they synergize with. Starting with OG Asmodeus. But first, just real quick, I want to get some disclaimers out of the way. This is going to apply to all 3 Asmodeus, just in general. They all suffer from something I like to call fair character syndrome. They're not incredibly broken top tier characters. You're not gonna just face roll everything just by slapping her on your team. And a lot of times the value that these characters can bring to a team is kind of overshadowed by some of these top tier characters like, Asmodeus, or not. Asmodeus is top tier waifu, okay, but top tier in terms of power level, I guess, in terms of PvP, characters like Panagia, characters like Belial, they're gonna kind of overshadow Asmodeus, kind of keep her out of the meta, more or less. Characters like Maman are really hard to deal with. There's just a lot of, I guess, better, stronger characters kind of competing for your team slot. But don't get me wrong, don't get disappointed if you pull and invest in this character. They're all great. They're just not, above and beyond. They're not obscenely broken, meta-defining characters. And I just wanted to let you know that, so you don't have any unrealistic expectations going into this. But with that out of the way, they are solid characters. If you invest into them, you take the time to get them the best, star shards that you can get for them, skill them up to whatever skill level they need to be. Some of them have breakpoints where their usability kind of drops off a little bit after that. I mean, not their usability, but for example, OG Asmodeus, her first breakpoint, I believe, is at plus 10, where her skill 2 maxes out its move gauge drain, and then her next breakpoint after that would be, I believe, plus 17, where it removes the condition that it has to hit red enemies to proc. So those are kind of her 2 breakpoints. But just getting into her overall kit, I'm not going to go through. I'm not going to read everything. I'll try to summarize everything the best that I can. Starting with her passive. So being the Demon Lord of Lust, she is immune to Charm and Enchant. Enchant is a PvE only status. And then she's got this really weird mechanic where if she dies, she drains enemies' move gauge, which kind of sucks because you don't really want her to die. And that's pretty much her entire passive. It's not super great, but the charm immunity is good because it is team wide. So just having that blanket immunity for a couple turns is very nice. So going on next to her ult, you're also going to notice all of the Asmodeus have very low damage percent on their attacks. So that means they're mostly going to be geared towards supportive abilities. So her ult at plus 21 does have a 0 cooldown, I believe. Let's see here. Let me see if I can figure out. Yeah, so normally it'll have a 3 CT. but at plus 21, it is a 0 CT. So basically what it does is it grants gash to agility type enemies, which increases the agility type damage, or final damage dealt plus 25, and then it heals. So this just tells you right off the bat that she wants to be paired with at least one other agility type character, which is fine. She is supportive towards agility, and having that extra 25% damage just right off the bat is very good. I'll give you some teammates that will appreciate all of her abilities once I kind of go over those a little bit more. And I think she is one of the few agility supports that can just immediately apply, a damage modification boost. Like not an attack boost, not like a crit boost, but this just straight up increases damage, which is very good for her, and kind of gives her a little bit more of a niche support for agility types. So her skill 2 is actually pretty nasty. So it's going to hit 3 enemies, it's going to charm them, or charm the ones with the lowest HP. It's going to essentially nuke their move gauge by like 45%. It's going to inflict slow. Like getting hit by this move is incredibly detrimental. Just having move gauge reduction, slow, having charm. It also removes attack and crit buffs. Like this attack right here is like her bread and butter. Like this is what you would build Asmodeus for. Like this move right here is her move. Okay. And then her skill 1 is less than impressive, but it does help agility types spam their ults a little bit more. It decreases skill cooldown. It also reduces damage dealt from the enemies that it hits, which is very cool. Makes your team a little bit tankier. You can kind of hit some of your opponents like harder hitting enemies with this. And then it also charms and inflicts a DOT. So it's a pretty solid move. It's not super impressive, but it does support agility types. So her skill 1 combined with her skill 3, she is an agility support, and to have her support the best that you can, you're going to want to give her as much speed as you can. So something like Nightshade with a skill speed slot 2. You actually also want to give her a lot of HP, because like this Devil's Tempt, it's cute, but you don't really want it to proc. You would rather have her stay alive and be able to constantly skill 1, skill 2, skill 3, and just abuse all of these buffs and debuffs and charm that she has. And you see her speed is actually quite good at plus 21. It's like base 1400 at not plus 21, or even plus 16. Like anything before your purple stars, she's going to be at like 1400 base, which is completely serviceable. She's got her consonants, so you can get some extra speed there. Just dump as much speed as you can on her, so that she can just hit the ground running. If you don't have the CT of this at 0 yet, she's going to open up with this, which is a fantastic opening move. It's awesome. And you're going to want to pair her with someone that can take advantage of what she provides. So what she provides is damage boosting, damage reduction, and move gauge and slow. So you're going to want to pair her up with someone who appreciates the extra damage, appreciates the extra tankiness, can take advantage of enemies being slowed down. Someone like Swimsuit Belial would love something like this, just being able to get in there, take some extra hits if she needs to, and just kind of like go to town on some slowed down enemies. Also, someone like Esmira who is just an absolute defensive monstrosity, would appreciate even more defense or damage reduction. That way she can just keep on tanking. And the two paired, Asmodeus and Asmira, are going to be really nasty because Asmira heals a ton. Asmodeus is also going to help chip in for the healing, and you're just going to have this nightmare blue squad, just the tag team duo right there, just kind of going in. It's pretty intimidating. But yeah, that's OG Asmodeus. Speed, HP, pair her up with a blue heavy hitter, and she's going to be good to go. You don't have to run her on a mono blue team. As long as she has one or two other blue characters she can kind of help support, she's golden. Alright, so moving on in terms of release order, next up would be New Year's Asmodeus. And New Year's Asmodeus takes the cake for being the DPS of Asmodeus. So she's kind of like a hybrid DPS support. You can see baseline 1600 speed, very fast. Whenever she gets her super evolution, her consonants, she's going to be like very fast, which is awesome. So starting off with her ult, she's immune to charm, as you know, she is Asmodeus. Therefore, you know, the god of lust cannot be charmed, or demon lord of lust. She also has some neat additional perks to her passive. She takes less damage from tech types, which is great, you know, because they're going to be hitting her for weakness. Having a little bit of extra defense against your weakness, it never hurts. She's also immune to defense break and agony, which is great. Defense break is going to be lowering your defense. And I forget what agony does, maybe like lowers attack or healing or something like that. But then on top of that, if she's up against someone who can inflict DOTs, she's going to remove it and debuff your enemy's attack. She also has some follow-up attacks that are kind of dependent on certain things. And can increase her own move gauge, so she's a little situational with some of this stuff. I believe she needs to be attacking charmed enemies, which is fine because she does inflict charm, but is a little bit more situational in her follow-up potential. The best thing about this is the the tech type attack reduction or damage reduction when hitting her. Makes her a little bit more tanky when going up against some of the harder hitting greens. Then for her ult, so it's got a 2 CT, 4 cooldown. So this one's really nice because it applies steady, which is great against anyone that's going to want to try to hit your move gauge, you know, like your Christmas Satan or whatever. But then on top of that, she also nukes the target's move gauge by 100%, literally to 0, and then increases all of your allies' move gauge by 25%. So right off the bat, she's going to be hitting 2 enemies with this and completely draining their move gauge, while also buffing up your team's move gauge. So this is like her big support move. Like, this goes off and you just kind of snowball with advantage from this. Alright, so her skill 2, this one's pretty interesting. If it's the one that I'm thinking of, it kind of does a lot. So it's situational because it has that whole like odd even turn thing, but you really just want to focus on the main effect. So it inflicts headwind and slack. Headwind disables move gauge acceleration. So characters like Idol Michael, characters like Sariel, pretty much anyone that likes to increase move gauge, you can shut that down for at least 3 enemies, which is very nice because a lot of the higher end meta teams are focused around speed and move gauge manipulation. So that's pretty nice. She also does have a situational heal, which goes off of her own attack. So that's why I said earlier she's like a hybrid DPS slash support. She's got some situational follow-ups, some damage potential, some healing that scales off of her own attack. So yeah. Oh, and Slack also decreases crit rate, which is fantastic. Her skill 1 basically boosts your allies' crit rate. It applies various things. So, allies penetrate. Okay, so it applies Fatal Attraction based on 3 conditions. A little situational, not exactly her best move. It is basically just, DOT and crit rate boosting. That's all you really need to know about that. So as a hybrid support slash DPS, you're going to want to get as much speed as you possibly can on her. You're also going to want to get some attack for her healing. But you also want to give her HP to live so that she can continue to support your team. So what I would recommend doing is giving her a 4-piece Nightshade, give her a 2-piece Endearment, go with speed on slot 2, and then go with attack percent on slots 4 and 6. And that should give you a nice, well-rounded build for your New Year's Asmodeus. Alright, and last but certainly not least, we have Reverse Bunny Asmodeus here. She is the newest addition to our harem of Asmodeus, I guess, if you want to call it that. But she kind of swings the other way from New Year's. She is pretty much entirely a support, a defensive support build or character. Looking at her ult, she is immune to Charm and Enchant, just like the other Asmodeus. She also has a unique ability called Wide Defense. If you've ever played any of the Pokemon games, there is pretty much just a move exactly like this. It's kind of like Protect, but like it protects your teammate too. What this is going to do is it's going to reduce incoming AoE damage. Which is pretty nice. It's going to reduce it by 35% for 3 turns, and a lot of characters have AoE attacks, like Belial's skill 2, Belial's skill 1, Belial's skill 3. All of Belial's attacks hit multiple targets, right? And someone like OG Lucy hits a bunch of targets. Like, so many characters hit more than one character. So this wide defense is pretty much always going to be relevant, and this is going to make your team much tankier. And she also has something new or different, I guess, compared to the other 2 Asmodeus. She has opening CC. She's the only Asmodeus that has this at the moment. She opens with Taunt. So she's going to taunt 3 enemy targets with the highest attack. So this just tells you right off the bat, you're going to want to make her beefy, like literally as beefy as you can, because she is going to be taking some some damage. Alright, so looking at her ult, she inflicts Charm, Fortitude, and Bunny Fortitude. So Fortitude just straight reduces damage taken by 40%. It's like a better version of Wide Defense, because it doesn't just apply to AoE. So pretty much by the time her Wide Defense wears off, she's going to be able to ult and get Fortitude. So she's always going to be, or at least, for pretty much the first 5 turns, for her first 5 turns, I guess, she is going to be reducing damage for your team, which is very handy. It's very nice to make your team a lot more tanky, to kind of slow roll or keep up. Maybe there's some effects you want to try to stall out, or you're just trying to keep your head above water in a high DPS meta. So Bunny Fortitude is her heal. Like, it's her big heal. It heals all allies by 35% of her max HP, which you should be building her for. You should give her a ton of HP so that she gets big heals. Oh, and before I forget, I think I forgot to mention teammates for Asmodeus. For New Year's Asmodeus, she is literally the most generic of the 3 Asmodeus. She doesn't really have any particular character she likes to be paired with. You can just throw her on any team and call it good. So no need to necessarily worry about a teammate for her. If you've got an open slot and you want an Asmodeus on your team, this is the one to throw on there. Unless, of course, you need a defensive option, then you go with this Asmodeus. So we just covered her ult. So let's go over her skill 2. So this one is very interesting. I believe I covered this when she first released. So it inflicts something called Compulsive Gambler, and also increases skill cooldown, which is very nice. You know, if you're trying to hold back your enemy's ult, it's very nice. So Compulsive Gambler is a status that gets put on the enemy. When that enemy takes damage, there is a 50% chance to inflict Fragile, increase the caster's skill cooldown, which would be that opponent, or 70% chance to inflict Headwind, which blocks move gauge acceleration. That is when they take damage. So you hit them with this, and then you hit them again, and Fragile says they're going to take more damage. Headwind is going to block their move gauge acceleration, or they're going to have their skill cooldown reduced even further. So this is just, like, it's pretty, like, RNG, but if you have, like, a multi-hit attack and you hit an enemy with this, like, you're probably going to proc, like, all of these effects, and they're just going to be screwed. It also hits 3 enemies, which is very nice, especially if you're, you know, just looking to throw out some debuffs. You know, Fragile is always a nice debuff to have, because more damage is good. So her last skill, her skill 1, so it has a very low chance to inflict Taunt, which is whatever, but the biggest part of this is the heal. So it heals 2 allies with the lowest HP, so targeted healing is very nice, and it heals by 170% of the caster's attack, which kind of counteracts the rest of her kit, because you want to be building her for HP, but 170% it is quite nice. So if we go look at my personal Asmodeus here, you can see I only have just over like 4,000 attack, and yet with her skill 1 she's healing like 25,000 sometimes, especially if it crits. So if you can get like a little bit of crit on her, or pair her with a crit buffer, that's going to be very nice. As far as teammates go, you know, she's pretty generic. If you need like a healer or a some sort of defensive option, she's pretty good. But I feel like her best pair is actually going to be with Witch Maman here. So what Witch Maman does is she increases your agility type character's HP, and also increases crit rate for your team. So that's going to be very helpful for Reverse Bunny Asmodeus, because Reverse Bunny is going to get even more HP, making her tankier. She's going to get crit rate, which is great for healing, so you can get those crit heals. And that's a combination that I run on my team. I mean, I run all the Asmodeus on my team, but it works out very nicely for some juicy crit heals. Like, sometimes I'll look at the status page after a match and see Bunny Asmo here healing for like 120,000, 200,000, just from like big crit heals and from big heals off of her her ult. Oh, and build real quick for Bunny Asmodeus is going to be speed, HP. Literally just as much speed and HP as you can. Got speed on slot 2, HP on slots 4 and 6. And just to kind of, yeah, if you have an HP Blood Pact, throw that on her too. For mirrors, you're going to want HP and defense. You do want some defense, you know, at least like 2,000, so that her HP can go a little bit further. Yeah, and I think that pretty much covers it for the Asmodeus guide. Let me get out the way so you can take a little look-see at my team here. This is what I've been running with in PvP. It's really fun. I feel this team has pretty good synergy with itself. I don't really have a dedicated DPS, but you know, between Asmodeus, like OG Asmodeus, you know, having Gash to increase damage, I have Fragile or Fracture or whatever, a bunch of DOT. It works out pretty nicely sometimes. And let me go into the formation real quick and show you guys some other potential teams that you can run, right? So let's say you've got OG Asmodeus. You can run her with, you know, somebody like Leviathan and where is my Glory Belial? I don't have her invested, but you can do something like this. You can go these three, and then, you know, you can go just like this, I guess. Just toss in some strong characters. If you have like Festival Uriel, you can throw her on there too. If you want to be just like an absolute chode, you can throw in Xmas Satan and Sariel. Where is she? Yeah. You can do something like this and just never let your opponent have move gauge ever again. You can also go like if you just want like a regular team, like let's say you're looking for a meta team but you want to have a waifu in your last slot, you can go boom boom. You can go boom right there, and then dope and shmoop. I'm gonna filter this by level. You can do something like this. Or if you want to be like an absolute defensive Giga Chad, you can go like you and there she is, right? Like this. You can have like Asmodeus and General Sandy, and between the two of them, you are effectively reducing incoming damage by 75% from the start of the battle. Like, sheesh, that's nuts. But yeah, let me guys know if you have any other questions or you know, want to see some more things about Asmodeus, or maybe you too are a Asmodeus simp and you feel like I missed something. You know, feel free to show the love for Asmodeus, correct me on anything that I might have misspoken about or missed in the comment section down below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Anniversary's coming up, so look forward to that. But yeah, peace.